What's up? It's David, the Emotional Optimization Coach and founder of the Emotional Optimization Academy. Today, we're going to be talking about emotional alchemy. Become an emotional alchemist and transmute your pain to gold. So the topics we're going to cover today are an introduction to emotional alchemy, become an emotional alchemist, and what I mean by that. We're also going to talk about what is alchemy, and it's not quite what you might think. It's the ancient art or practice of transmuting base materials to gold. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, and we're going to get deeper into like what alchemy actually is, as opposed to just turning things into gold. We're also going to understand transmutation and recognizing your emotional base materials. Then we're going to get into the alchemical furnace of awareness. From there, we're going to get into the transmutation process and practice and the alchemist motto, Solve et coagula. Might sound familiar. Solve, coagulation, things like that. We're going to talk also about the benefits and transformations for emotional alchemy. So first off, emotional alchemy. What is it and how do you become an emotional alchemist? In order to talk about emotional alchemy, we're going to first talk about alchemy, and we'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment. But emotional alchemy is taking something down to its foundation emotionally, taking your emotions down to the foundation, down to the roots, so that you can make room for good stuff. And when we're talking about emotional alchemy, we're talking about taking the bad stuff, right? All of the traumas that have happened to us, all of the big events, all of the things that really, really suck in life, and making something good from that. So emotional alchemy is basically a way to conceptualize how to take the crap of your life and turn it into something positive, right? So becoming an emotional alchemist is learning the skills to take these things out of something bad that has happened to you and turning it into a foundation, bringing it down to the foundation, down to the roots, down to the base level. If you take all of these things and you strip all the pieces and parts away, take your reactions out of it, take your emotional reaction out of it, and look at this thing as an opportunity. Look at this thing as a puzzle. And if you break it down to the base elements, if you get down to the foundation, you can look at this puzzle and go, okay, if I can break this down to its elements, if I can break this down to its roots and reassemble it in a better way, I can grow from it. If I just look at the end result or the situation itself as the end result, I'm never going to grow from it, because it's always going to be a painful experience. It's going to be a trauma. It's going to be something bad that has happened to you, unless you can break it down. If you can break it down, then you can reassemble it. If you can break it down to the roots, if you can look at it from different angles, if you can use it as an opportunity to grow, to transmute, to grow spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally from the situation, then it becomes gold. Okay. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. So that's a little bit about what emotional alchemy is and how you can become an emotional alchemist. So what is alchemy, right? Alchemy is the ancient art of transmuting base materials to gold. Now, why am I saying this is not quite the way that you might think? Because a lot of people get caught up in turning things to gold, and they get caught up on the surface element of that, the surface issue of that. The surface result is, oh, we want more gold, we want more money, we want more finances, we want more whatever. That is not how the alchemists approached the transmutation process or the transforming of certain things down to their base materials and then into gold. Here's the thing about alchemy. when this was created, this was kind of like one of the early forms of self-help, one of the early forms of spiritual growth and personal development, right? The approach, and a lot of people get caught up in the symptoms or the surface element of, oh, well, you're trying to make gold in a lab from fire and water and all of these base elements. That's not what they were really doing. What they were really doing was kind of taking a look at life itself. And if you can break this down, and yes, they were doing scientific experiments about, turning things into gold, but their approach was take the thing, break it down, because you can't have something new until you break it down. When you can break it down, then you can reassemble it in a way that is more beneficial to you, which brings the gold of the experience itself. It's not about creating actual gold. It's about taking something that most people will see as mundane and getting something valuable out of it. Not necessarily a financial resource, but something spiritually valuable, personally valuable, that was worth actually way more than gold. And we see nowadays, you can make all the money in the world and you can still be unhappy. It's not about the gold. It's about the personal growth. It's about your development as a person and engaging more in life and getting more out of life itself. That's the real gold. The finances might be a byproduct. The resources might be a byproduct. The physical gold might be a byproduct. But if you're not living happy, you haven't really transmuted your experience of life itself. And I'm using examples of traumas and big events and the crap of life, but really it's more about getting more out of life itself, right? And the fastest way to do that is to take some of these big, seemingly negative experiences, the traumas and the difficulties of life, and getting more out of them. Turning them into a resource, turning them into something positive, turning them into something valuable to you. Because if you just stop at this painful thing happened to me, and I will constantly spend the rest of my life reacting to that painful event to protect myself from that pain ever happening again, that's not valuable. That's not a resource. That's not living. That is protecting. That is surviving. That's not living. That's not living full. That's not living happy, right? If you want a happy and fulfilled life, you have to look at these things, break them down to their base elements, and reconstruct them, rebuild them in a way that becomes valuable to you. So alchemy is not simply turning things to gold, turning things down to their base elements and then making gold out of them. It is turning the experiences of life, taking the experiences of life, breaking them down to their base elements so that you can grow from everything. So you can turn anything into a valuable resource and experience for you so that you can live your life like it's golden. Okay? So that is a shift on the concept of alchemy, what we sometimes consider alchemy to be, turning things into gold, and looking underneath at the personal growth element, the personal development element of what alchemy actually was. Okay? So let's talk about understanding emotional transmutation. So the word transmutation basically is taking things down to their base element and transmuting them, evolving them into something better. Okay? So emotional transmutation is getting down to the roots of whatever the emotional thing is, and then recognizing and using those emotional base materials to shift your mental puzzle, your emotional puzzle inside of your mind to become something better for you, to become something golden for you, to become a valuable resource to you. But you've got to understand what those emotional base materials are. Those base materials are looking at your reaction, Why am I reacting? What am I reacting to? What am I afraid of? If you break down emotions, you break them down to the most base level. You have fear and you have love. Fear, safety. If you want to really break it down, those are the two base emotions. So if you've got fear or safety, which one is gold? Feeling safe, feeling accepted, feeling loved, feeling valuable, feeling worthy, feeling like you can be yourself, finding out who you are, right? Discovering what your passion is, what you love to do in life, and then doing that thing, feeling more confident, building your confidence over time. So when you recognize that these are the base emotions, then you can look at any experience and go, okay, what am I operating from? Am I operating from fear or safety? That's it. Which one is gold? Which one do you want? In order to get from fear to safety, you have to look at all of the other pieces around that. So the base emotions are fear and safety. The evolved emotions, the emotions on top of that might be judgment, might be abandonment, might be rejection. Those are all fears, right? Safety is love, acceptance, community, connection. Okay, so those are like secondary emotions. Those aren't the base emotions, but those are the evolution of those emotions, what's on top of those emotions, or how those emotions express themselves out in the world. So if you can understand what those root emotions are, what those base materials are, those emotional base materials are, then as you get down to the roots of whatever the situation is, then you can grow from it. Then you can learn from it. You can take it down to the roots and reconstruct it in a way that brings you more safety and less fear. So let's talk about the alchemical furnace of awareness. The transmutation process and practice, knowing the base and the transformation that you want, okay? Because in order for you to get anywhere, in order for you to create anything, you've got to know what you want to create, right? So the alchemical furnace of awareness is just a way to say, getting into your stuff, the flames, the fire of transforming, right? The painful experience of going into the thing. When we're talking about traumas and big intense emotions and the craps of life, right? The crap of life. When we're talking about that, that's not an easy thing to go into. That is the furnace. The furnace is when the crap gets burnt away. It's not an easy process. It's not an enjoyable process. It sucks. It hurts. But what happens is as you burn away the crap of your old reactions, then you start to become aware of what is left. Okay? So when I'm talking about the burning away the crap, burning away the extra, the excess, the stuff that is surrounding the root, is we have a root emotion, a root memory, a root thing that has happened to us, right? A traumatic event in childhood, for example. And we have all of this stuff we end up piling on top of that root. We have a traumatic experience that happened in childhood, and then something else reminds us when we're 10 years old, when we're 16, when we're 18, 21, all the big events of life. We have things that remind us or that are similar to this root event. So what we do is we pile things on top of this. We continue going back and we build this storyline, right, around this root experience that we may or may not completely remember, but our mind does to some degree. So our mind remembers the feeling of this bad thing that happened. And every time something similar happens and we can't get to the root, we don't have the tools to process or feel safe enough to process the root, we're going to pile stuff on top of it because we cannot process a new thing because we haven't built the skills to process the old thing. So we put it into the closet of unresolved emotions, piles it on top, piles it on top, piles it on top. But that root is really the answer. That is the key. That is your base emotional foundation, right? That is your base emotional resources, okay? Element. The base element is this root memory, this root experience, the root bad thing that happened to you. Pile other stuff on top of it. And eventually, we can get to a point where we have enough skills, enough safety, enough support to actually look at the thing. So we start peeling off the layers. That's the alchemical furnace, is you're starting to burn away these secondary experiences, because that's not the real issue. That's not the real issue. As you're diving deeper into your issues, you're going to peel away the layers. That's the furnace. You're burning away the layers. You're going, okay, when I was 20, when I was 30, whatever, I had this experience and it was a painful experience and that sucked. So you go into that experience, you're like, okay, I'm cleared of that, but that's not it. It goes deeper. It goes back further. Okay, so you're kind of peeling away the layers piece by piece with the tools or the strength or the safety that you have in the moment to process as much as you can. Maybe you only get to in your 30s. And you're like, okay, I processed this. And there's still more. And then you build up more confidence or more tools or more skills or more practice to go back even further. And you're like, okay, now I'm in my 20s, peeling off the layers there. Now I'm like 18, 16. Now I'm in my teens, peeling off the layers there. That is the furnace until you get down to the root memory, the thing that happened when you were even younger, the first time that this pain got experienced. And you're like, okay, all of these things, all of these storylines that I've created around this thing go back to this. When you can get down to the base, when you can get down to the elemental piece, the fundamental piece, and process that, then you experience the transmutation or transformation. Okay? When you discover the root, when you discover the base, then the transformation occurs. Transformation is, okay, now I'm 5 years old. This is a crappy thing. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to be a wild animal. I'm going to just express myself. I'm going to speak up for myself. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to give myself everything I needed back then. What you're doing is you're in that furnace. You're burning away. You're transforming the thing. And then you're rescuing that part of yourself. You're reclaiming those resources that are yours. That is where you start to build the gold. You build this part of yourself, you rescue this part of yourself. You're going into the furnace of pain and suffering and hard stuff, okay? Looking at the bad thing that happened to you and finding yourself, finding your strength, creating whatever storyline you need. That is the transmutation process, okay? The practice is continuing to do it repeatedly as you find different roots, transmuting those, okay? Doing the alchemy of that particular experience and making gold from it, making something positive from it. And as you do that, you practice it, you get stronger at it. You get more confident at it. You build up your skills around it. So the process is going back as far as you can to the root. And your mind will do this easily when it feels safe. When you have the skills, the tools, the support to go into it, to discover the awareness that you need for your emotional elements so that you can rebuild it and get down to the root. The practice is just doing it repeatedly. The more frequently we do something, the stronger and more confident we become at it. And then it eventually becomes automated. So we don't even have to consciously think about it. If we do this enough times, we can automate any one of these processes to go back into a root memory or to go back into a painful memory or trauma, whatever. Just go into it, experience it, transmute it, and then come out the other side with gold. The evolution of the experience, the positive, the feel good, right? The more that we do it, the better we get at it. So know the base. Know the transformation. What do you want to feel? If you're feeling sad or depressed or stressed or anxious, and you want to feel happy and full and safe and excited and joyous, all right, you might not know what those are yet. You might be so caught up in the bad things that have happened to you that you don't even know that these other things are possible. Or if they are, you don't know what they feel like. You don't have an idea necessarily of what these good things are supposed to feel like. You can hear about them and you're like, yeah, okay, but I don't know what self-love is. I don't know how to accept myself. I don't know how to speak up for myself. I don't know how to stop overextending for other people, right? How to stop the people pleasing, or how to stop the negative thoughts in my head. That's not a reality for you. So you're like, what, a clear mind? I don't get it. Being able to think clearly, being able to not feel triggered all the time, or overwhelmed, or stressed, or anxious. You don't have a concept necessarily of those things yet. So you build over time by going back and doing these moments of the alchemical furnace, going into the roots, going into the thing. And then eventually you're like, okay, well, I know what it feels now to not feel stressed all the time. I did not even realize that I was constantly stressed until I went through a couple of these cycles, went through and worked through a couple of the pieces. Then you look at it and you go, okay, so if it's possible for me to experience a life where I'm not constantly stressed or overwhelmed or full of anxiety and have panic attacks all the time, there's a possibility that you can go even further. Okay, so now that I'm out of survival mode and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not constantly bombarded with all of these fear reactions. Okay, now I can start to conceptualize safety. Then I can start to conceptualize what happy might feel like, what joy might feel like, what genuinely connecting with another person might feel like, and feeling safe to do that. Okay, and those are evolutions that happen. Transmutations that happen as the process of this alchemical transmutation takes place. You start to reclaim more of yourself. You start to feel more confident. You start to feel safer. And then over time, as you make steps forward into, maybe I want to connect with people. Maybe I want to have a relationship. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to have a friendship. Maybe I don't. Whatever it is, standing in your confidence and building that confidence over time, you really get to define what you want and learn and discover what you actually want out of life by clearing the clutter, by transmuting the pains of your life, the bad things of your life, into gold, into valuable things for you. Okay? So that is the alchemical furnace of awareness, the transmutation process and practice, knowing the base and the transformation. That's really what's gonna get you to this process of alchemy for you, is getting down to your roots, getting down to what it is that you're actually reacting to, and then transforming into something better. And you don't necessarily have to know where you want to head at first. You just want to know, or you just need to know that it's better than wherever you are. Okay, whatever this thing is, and it can just be a step better. Maybe feeling safe. Maybe not feeling overwhelmed constantly. That's your first level. That's your first transmutation. That's the first transformation. The place that you want to be is better than where you're at. Okay? But you gotta want it. And you gotta know this is your next step. It's not the full transformation of I'm living a happy, fulfilled life with fantastic relationships and friendships and finances and all of this stuff. Maybe it's just a level better than you were yesterday. Maybe it's a thought better than you were yesterday. Okay, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it can be big for you. So let's talk about the Alchemist motto, Solve et Coagula. Basically, that means to dissolve and coagulate, or to separate and join together. In order to create something new, we must break the old. In this case, we're talking about emotional patterns. We're talking about mental patterns. You got to break it down to rebuild it. And when you rebuild it in a way that you want, in a way that to you is gold, whatever that gold is, whatever that valuable experience is for you. You've got to break it down. You got to break the old habits. You've got to break the old patterns. You've got to break these processes inside of your mind that have been keeping you safe to the best of their ability, but not necessarily allowing you the freedom to feel safe. It's been protecting you, but it may be fear-based protection. So it's like, I'll protect you, but I will attack everybody. So I keep them away so that I'm safe and nobody's going to hurt me. Okay. Maybe you're just a harsh individual and you speak the truth, but really what you're doing is you're just keeping everybody at bay because you're afraid of people coming in because maybe you've been hurt in the past, right? So that's one element of where we might be doing one thing that is an old pattern that is designed to protect us and believes that it's protecting us, but it's not really, right? It's making us more lonely. It's putting a wall between us and any other connection or positive thing that we want in life, love, friendship, community, any of those things. Maybe they're dangerous to our mind. Maybe we haven't created the feeling or the belief that we can be safe in community, that we can be safe with relationships, that we can be safe with friendships. So we just don't have any. Well, what happens over time is you are alone in this bubble that you've created that might on the surface be protecting you, but it's certainly not living. It's not connecting. It's not expanding. It's not evolving. You're protected in your own little bubble, but you're not doing anything, right? That's not life. That's not living. So the Alchemist motto, solve et coagula, and I'm probably butchering it because I don't speak Latin very well at all. The meaning underneath it is to dissolve and coagulate, or to separate and join together, okay? To create something new, we must first break the old pattern, break the old thing down to its fundamental elements. The benefits and transformations of doing this is that you are breaking these old patterns inside of your brain. You are breaking things down into the fundamentals, so you're not caught on the surface stuff, okay? You're actually transmuting and transforming the foundational stuff. Because if you're just caught on the surface of what happened last week, you're not going to get to the root. If you're just caught on this person, said something crappy to me and that's the situation, that's what I'm reacting to, that's why I'm so mad. Well, if you never look deeper, that's all the growth that you're ever going to get. That's all the gold you're ever going to find. But if you dig deeper into the situation and your reaction and look back into, okay, this thing that happened to me a week ago sucks. It totally sucks. It made me feel like this and blah, 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 blah. Okay, but what am I actually reacting to? What does this remind me of? Where else in my life has something like this happened? Oh, okay. I remember 5 years ago, somebody treated me like this. Somebody said something like this. Somebody, made me feel bad about something, right? Okay. Well, now you're getting closer. Now you're getting closer to the root. As you continue going through the cycles and pulling yourself out of the reaction of the moment and diving into your underworld, diving into your base to discover what your roots are, there's more gold down there. There's more value down there than there is on the surface. So if you don't want to dig, that's fine, because those things are painful. It's not easy to dig deeper, right? But the value that you get from that, the gold that you discover as you dive deeper into your stuff, that leads to the benefits and the transformations. So benefits and transformations in this case, by breaking it down and diving deeper and tearing things apart to rebuild them. And by tearing things apart, I'm also talking about your storyline, right? Because we've got mental stories around the pains, mental stories around the situations, whether they're current or past. Those are all stories. But if we tear the story down and go, okay, I've been telling myself this for 10 years. Is it really true? I don't know. Let me get in. Let me disassemble the story. Let me break the story down and explore my underworld, explore digging deeper. Let me go hunt for gold. Okay, so you're going into your thing, you're going into experience. The benefits and transformations of that are maybe you experience stress the majority of your life and you don't even know that you're experiencing stress. A benefit from that, as you dive deeper and find your things and process through them and transmute them, is number one, you experience, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that I was stressed. I didn't even know what stress was. I didn't know that that wasn't normal. So you've got this awareness, right? An epiphany. You're like, oh, wow, this thing that I've been feeling that I thought everybody experienced is not normal. Then you get into, okay, now I can release the fear response, which alleviates the stress. So maybe you experience a day without stress. Imagine how mind-blowing that would be if you go through your daily life in one particular way that you think is normal, and you experience a day where you are free from the stress. Wow, how amazing would that be? That would be massively valuable to realize that there is this potential to live without the stress, to live outside of fear. And that can just be phase one, right? And then you're like, oh, happiness. Oh, I never knew what happiness was. I thought I was happy. And you experience a genuine moment of happiness, or a genuine moment of connection, or a genuine moment of feeling accepted. You're like, oh, wow, this is powerful. I didn't even know this was possible. Because you've been spending so much of your resources protecting yourself from pain out of fear. Okay? When you start to get into safety, then you can start evolving into love and acceptance and confidence and all of the good stuff, right? We know we have some concept of these things, but we don't know that they're possible for us necessarily. So by going in, tearing the walls down, tearing your storyline down, and getting underneath that, then you can start realizing more of what is possible for you and more of what you've been missing by living out of survival, right? And we all have different levels of survival, or pieces or parts of our life that we're still trying to survive. And then we have different pieces and parts of our life where we're starting to feel a little bit more valuable, where we have more worth, where we feel worthy in certain areas of our life, perhaps, than we do in others. Like finances might be great. You might feel financially worthy, but you might have crap relationships because you don't feel worthy in love, right? You might feel worthy financially, but you don't feel worthy in love, or vice versa. You might feel worthy in love, but not worthy financially. So you got a great home life, a great relationship, but you have no money. And those are just pieces and parts of the storylines that we have. So this Alchemist motto, Solve et Coagula, is tearing it down, tearing the storyline down, tearing the mirage, and looking at what's actually going on, diving into digging for that gold inside of you, to find the valuable pieces of you, to reclaim those parts of you that have been in protective mode, that have been in fear, that fear-based response instead of safety. Okay, if you can get to safety, then you can get to acceptance, you can get to love, you can get to worth, value, confidence, all of the good stuff, right? Okay. So those are the tips for today. I want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me, but most importantly for choosing to level up your life and your skills, to take your life to a whole new level, to be a better leader, to be a better person, to learn more about emotional optimization so you can become more efficient with your emotions and get more done with less overwhelm, stress, and anxiety. Let's connect. I would love to help you feel better. Somewhere around this video, you're going to find the resources to connect with me. I look forward to that. Go out and be a better person. Create ripples forward in the world. Be better, do better. That's how you lead the world. That's all for now. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next video.